The human brain does something unexpected as it ages. It begins to protect meaning over speed. Long before memory feels different, the brain quietly decides the depth, emotional balance, and survival matter more than instant recall. What we often label as memory loss after 70 is, in many cases, the brain choosing wisdom over urgency, refinement over noise. After the age of 70, memory does not disappear. It changes its priorities. The brain no longer behaves like a fast search engine designed to retrieve every detail on demand. Instead, it becomes more selective, choosing depth over speed, relevance over immediacy. This shift can feel unsettling because modern life teaches us to equate sharp memory with quick recall, but biology tells a different story. The aging brain is not failing, it is refining. It begins to invest its limited energy in what carries meaning, emotional value, and long-term understanding rather than in rapid access to names, dates, or minor details. Before we continue, ask yourself, is your body moving with you or against you? If you feel that morning stiffness, tell me your story in the comments. And please, like this video to help this message of healing reach someone who truly needs it today. Speed is one of the first things the brain willingly gives up with age. And this is not accidental. Neural signaling naturally slows as insulation around nerves changes and blood flow patterns adapt. This slowing allows the brain to be more deliberate. Information is processed with greater context, drawing on decades of experience. That is why older adults often excel at judgment, pattern recognition, and emotional insight, even when they struggle to remember where they placed their glasses. The brain is trading speed for wisdom, and this trade is intentional. When someone over 70 pauses to find a word, it is often because the brain is searching through a richer, more complex library than it once did. Younger brains retrieve quickly because the library is smaller and the shelves are less crowded. An older brain contains layers of memories, associations, and emotional tagging built over a lifetime. Retrieval takes longer, not because the memory is weak, but because it is embedded in a deeper network. This is why memories often return later, unexpectedly, when pressure has eased and the nervous system feels calm. Selectivity also means that the brain filters information more aggressively. It becomes less interested in trivial input and more focused on what aligns with survival, relationships, and identity. This filtering can look like forgetfulness, but it is often a sign of efficiency. The brain is protecting itself from overload. In an environment filled with constant stimulation, this selectivity is a form of resilience. The brain is saying quietly, not everything deserves equal attention anymore. Emotion plays a powerful role in this process. The aging brain retains emotional memory far more reliably than factual detail. This is why an older adult may forget a conversation's specifics, but remember exactly how it felt. Emotional memory is deeply tied to survival and social connection, so the brain preserves it carefully. Speed of recall matters less than the ability to interpret, empathize, and respond wisely, which often improves with age rather than declines. There is also an energy economy at work. The brain consumes a significant portion of the body's energy, and with age, it becomes more conservative. It allocates resources where they are most needed. Quick recall of arbitrary information is expensive in terms of energy. Sustaining balance, regulating emotions, maintaining identity, and supporting bodily functions take priority. Slower memory is often a sign that the brain is budgeting its energy intelligently rather than wasting it on unnecessary speed. This selectivity becomes especially clear when comparing normal aging to disease. In normal memory changes, understanding remains intact. A person knows who they are, recognizes loved ones, follows conversations, and makes decisions. The struggle lies in retrieval speed, not in comprehension. Disease strips meaning away, normal aging preserves it. The brain may hesitate, but it does not lose itself. Fear can distort this natural process. When someone becomes anxious about memory, stress hormones interfere with recall, making the slowdown feel worse than it is. The brain under stress shifts into vigilance mode. narrowing focus and reducing access to stored information. In this state, selectivity becomes more pronounced and speed slows further. This creates a loop where fear confirms itself, even though the underlying brain function remains healthy. Understanding that memory after 70 is selective rather than defective allows space for patience. It reframes pauses not as failures, but as the brain choosing its words carefully. It explains why memory improves in relaxed settings and worsens under pressure. It honors the idea that a slower response can still be a wiser one. The aging brain values relevance. It remembers what matters to identity, safety, and connection. It lets go of what no longer serves those purposes. This is not loss in the traditional sense, but a shift in focus shaped by biology and experience. When memory is judged by youthful standards, it appears lacking. When it is judged by its true function, it reveals an intelligence that has learned to conserve, prioritize, and endure. Normal age-related memory changes and disease-related memory decline may look similar on the surface, but beneath that surface they follow very different biological stories. After the age of 70, the brain naturally changes how it processes and retrieves information, and these changes are often mistaken for illness. The key distinction lies not in whether forgetting occurs, but in how it occurs, how it progresses, and what remains intact beneath it. Understanding this difference is essential, because fear often fills the gap where clarity is missing. In normal aging, memory lapses tend to be situational and inconsistent. A name may be forgotten during conversation but remembered later in the day. An appointment may slip the mind during a stressful week but return when life slows down. These lapses fluctuate with sleep, stress, hydration, and emotional state. The brain still knows how to learn, reason, and adapt. It simply needs more favorable conditions to retrieve information. Disease-related decline does not behave this way. It is steady, progressive, and largely independent of context. One of the most reassuring signs of normal memory aging is preserved understanding. A person may search for words, but they follow conversations. They may misplace items, but they know what those items are for. They may repeat a story, but they recognize the people listening. Identity remains intact. The sense of self does not erode. In contrast, disease affects comprehension itself. Language becomes fragmented. Familiar tasks become confusing. Orientation to time, place, and relationships begins to dissolve. These are not subtle changes, and they do not come and go. From a biological standpoint, normal aging slows communication between neurons without destroying them. The pathways still exist, but signals travel with slightly longer pauses. Disease damages the structure of those pathways, disrupting the brain's ability to store and retrieve information altogether. This is why normal memory loss feels like delay, while disease feels like disappearance. One is a slowdown, the other is a breakdown. Emotion also plays a revealing role. In normal aging, emotional memory remains strong. People remember feelings, relationships, and meaningful experiences. They respond appropriately to social cues and maintain empathy. Disease gradually dulls emotional resonance. Reactions become flat or inappropriate. The emotional landscape changes along with memory, signaling deeper neurological disruption. Progression is another critical difference. Normal memory changes stabilize over time. They may worsen slightly, then plateau. Many seniors notice that their memory feels about the same year after year. Disease progresses relentlessly. Skills that were present 6 months ago may be gone today. Independence steadily erodes. This pattern is difficult to miss when viewed over time. Fear often clouds this distinction because anxiety magnifies normal lapses. When someone becomes hyper-aware of memory, every pause feels alarming. Stress hormones interfere with the hippocampus, temporarily reducing recall. The brain, sensing threat, narrows its focus. This creates the illusion of decline even when the underlying structure is healthy. Disease does not improve with reassurance or rest. Normal memory often does. Another key difference lies in adaptability. In normal aging, the brain compensates. People develop strategies, routines, and cues that support memory. They learn new skills more slowly, but still learn. Disease reduces this adaptability. New information fails to stick. Repetition does not help. Familiar strategies stop working. From the inside, as one would see through a surgeon's lens, the difference is striking. An aging but healthy brain shows refinement. A diseased brain shows disruption. One is adjusting its rhythm, the other is losing coherence. This is why context matters so deeply. A single test or moment cannot define memory health. Patterns over time tell the real story. Understanding these differences restores perspective. It allows seniors to interpret their experiences without panic. Forgetting a name is not the same as forgetting a person. Losing track of time occasionally is not the same as losing orientation entirely. Memory does not need to be perfect to be healthy. When normal aging is mistaken for disease, the emotional toll can be profound. Confidence erodes. Stress increases. Ironically, memory worsens under this pressure. Clarity about what is normal creates relief, and relief supports brain function. The mind works best when it feels safe. Age-related memory change is not a diagnosis. It is a natural adaptation of a brain that has carried a lifetime of experience. Disease is not defined by forgetting alone, but by the loss of understanding, identity, and connection. Knowing this difference allows the brain to age with dignity rather than fear. After the age of 70, memory does not simply weaken, it reorganizes. The brain begins to prioritize meaning, patterns, and emotional relevance over speed and detail. This shift can feel like loss when measured by youthful standards, but biologically it is a reallocation of resources rather than a failure of function. The aging brain is less interested in storing every detail and more focused on preserving what matters most for survival, identity, and social connection. One of the most noticeable changes is in recall speed. Information is still stored, but it takes longer to access. Names, dates, and specific words may sit just out of reach, creating moments of frustration, yet when given time or context, they often return. This is because the neural pathways are intact, but the signals traveling along them move more slowly due to changes in myelin, the insulating layer that speeds communication between neurons. Slower transmission does not mean damaged memory, it means delayed retrieval. At the same time, the brain becomes more selective. It filters out information that lacks relevance, conserving energy for what it deems important. This is why older adults may forget trivial details but remember conversations that carry emotional weight or practical significance. Emotion strengthens memory because it activates deeper brain networks that remain resilient with age. The hippocampus and amygdala continue to work together, reinforcing memories tied to meaning rather than volume. Working memory also changes. Holding multiple pieces of information at once becomes more challenging, especially under pressure. This is not because the brain cannot handle complexity, but because it now requires calmer conditions. Multitasking taxes attentional systems that are less flexible with age. When seniors focus on one task at a time, memory performance often improves dramatically. The brain favors depth over breadth. Another important adaptation is the reliance on experience. The aging brain draws heavily on accumulated knowledge to interpret new information. This can sometimes slow learning of unfamiliar material, but it also allows for wiser decision-making. Pattern recognition becomes stronger. Seniors often sense outcomes before they can articulate the reasoning behind them. This intuitive memory is not measured by standard tests, yet it reflects a sophisticated form of cognitive function. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt, does not disappear after 70. It simply responds to different stimuli. Repetition, emotional engagement, and relevance become more important than speed. Learning still occurs, but it follows a rhythm that respects the brain's new tempo. When learning is rushed or forced, memory suffers. When it is paced and meaningful, the brain responds. Stress plays a powerful role in shaping these changes. Elevated stress hormones interfere with the hippocampus, temporarily reducing memory formation and retrieval. Older adults are particularly sensitive to this effect. When stress is reduced, memory often improves. This is why calm environments, routines, and supportive relationships are so beneficial. They create conditions in which the brain can function optimally. Sleep also becomes more influential. The aging brain relies heavily on sleep to consolidate memory. Disruptions in sleep architecture can impair recall, even when the brain itself is healthy. Addressing sleep quality often restores memory clarity without any direct cognitive intervention. The brain uses rest to reorganize and strengthen neural connections. These adaptations are often misunderstood because they differ from youthful performance. Society equates speed with intelligence and recall with competence. The aging brain challenges this assumption. It demonstrates that memory is not a static warehouse, but a living system that evolves with experience. Forgetting details does not erase wisdom. Slower recall does not diminish understanding. From within, the brain remains active, responsive, and capable. It is simply operating under a different set of priorities. The challenge arises when seniors judge their memory against unrealistic standards or interpret normal changes as signs of disease. This misinterpretation creates anxiety, which further impairs memory, reinforcing a false narrative of decline. Recognizing memory reorganization as adaptation allows seniors to work with their brains rather than against them. By allowing more time, reducing stress, and engaging emotionally with information, memory becomes more accessible. The brain reveals its enduring capacity when given the conditions it now requires. Memory after 70 is not about retaining everything. It is about retaining what matters. It reflects a lifetime of experience distilled into meaning, insight, and emotional resonance. This shift does not signal the loss of the mind, but the refinement of it. One of the most important distinctions after the age of 70 is the difference between normal memory change and pathological memory loss. This line is often blurred, not because it is difficult to understand, but because fear makes every lapse feel dangerous. Normal memory loss is selective, gradual, and situational. It appears most often under stress, fatigue, distraction, or unfamiliar circumstances. Pathological memory loss, by contrast, is progressive, disorienting, and intrusive, interfering with daily functioning and a person's sense of self. In healthy aging, memory lapses tend to involve retrieval rather than storage. Information is not erased. It is temporarily inaccessible. A senior may forget a name, but recognize the face. They may misplace an object, but retrace their steps and find it. They may struggle to recall a word, yet describe its meaning accurately. These moments are frustrating, but they preserve awareness and reasoning. The individual knows something is missing and actively seeks it. This self-awareness is a key sign of normal cognitive aging. Pathological memory loss behaves differently. Information is not simply delayed, it is lost or distorted. A person may forget familiar routes, repeat the same questions without awareness, or struggle to recognize close family members. The brain areas responsible for orientation, judgment, and identity become affected. This is not a matter of speed or selectivity, but of structural and chemical disruption. The experience feels less like forgetfulness and more like confusion. From inside the brain, these two processes look very different. In normal aging, neurons remain largely intact, but communication between them slows, blood flow may be slightly reduced, and neurotransmitter balance shifts, but the architecture is preserved. The brain compensates by relying on alternative pathways, experience, and context. In pathological conditions, neurons degenerate, connections are lost, and inflammation damages networks that cannot easily be replaced. Emotion provides another clear marker. In normal aging, emotional memory is often preserved or even enhanced. Seniors remember how something made them feel long after details fade. This emotional continuity supports relationships and identity. In pathological decline, emotional responses may flatten or become inappropriate, reflecting deeper disruption in brain circuits that regulate feeling and behavior. Daily function is perhaps the most practical guide. Normal memory change does not prevent a person from managing finances, preparing meals, following conversations, or maintaining personal care. even if these tasks take more time. Pathological memory loss gradually erodes independence. Tasks once automatic become confusing. Sequencing steps becomes difficult. Safety awareness diminishes. These changes emerge not suddenly, but persistently. An often overlooked factor is reversibility. Many memory problems after 70 are influenced by modifiable conditions such as poor sleep, medication effects, dehydration, nutritional deficiencies, hearing loss, or chronic stress. When these factors are addressed, memory frequently improves. This improvement is a strong indicator that the brain itself remains healthy. Pathological memory loss does not respond in the same way. Adjustments may slow progression, but lost function does not fully return. Fear itself can mimic pathology. Anxiety narrows attention, disrupts hippocampal function, and impairs recall. Seniors who are constantly worried about memory loss often perform worse on memory tasks than those who are calm, even when their brains are equally healthy. The brain under threat prioritizes survival over recall. This creates a cycle where fear produces lapses, and lapses reinforce fear. Social context also shapes perception. Modern life places heavy emphasis on rapid information processing and constant novelty. These demands favor younger brains. When older adults struggle to meet these expectations, they may interpret this mismatch as decline rather than contextual strain. In environments that value conversation, reflection, and routine, memory often appears stronger and more reliable. Medical labeling can unintentionally intensify this confusion. A diagnosis based on brief testing may not capture the full picture of an individual's cognitive life. Tests measure specific functions under artificial conditions. They do not measure wisdom, judgment, emotional intelligence, or adaptability. Seniors may score lower while functioning well in daily life. This discrepancy can create unnecessary distress. Understanding this distinction requires patience and observation over time. Normal memory change fluctuates. Good days and bad days alternate. Fatigue worsens performance. Rest improves it. Pathological decline follows a more linear trajectory, gradually narrowing a person's world. Recognizing these patterns reduces panic and allows for appropriate response. The aging brain deserves interpretation, not judgment. Memory changes after 70 are often signals, not failures. They reflect a system adjusting to new rhythms, conserving energy, and prioritizing relevance. When these changes are misread as disease, seniors may lose confidence in their minds long before any true impairment exists. Clarity replaces fear when memory is understood in context. Forgetting becomes information rather than evidence. It tells us about stress, sleep, attention, and emotional state. The brain continues to communicate its needs, and when those needs are met, function often stabilizes. Distinguishing normal memory change from pathological loss is not about denying risk, but about honoring accuracy. It allows seniors to remain engaged, curious, and confident while remaining attentive to genuine warning signs. This balance protects both mental health and neurological health, supporting a sense of trust in the body rather than suspicion toward it. Perhaps the most hopeful truth about memory after 70 is that the brain does not age in isolation. It responds continuously to how a person lives, thinks, moves, eats, rests, and relates to the world. Memory is not a fixed possession slowly slipping away, but a living process shaped every day by environment and behavior. This means that even in later decades, cognitive resilience is not only possible, it is biologically supported. Neuroscience has shown that the aging brain retains plasticity, the ability to adapt, reorganize, and strengthen connections. While the pace of forming new neurons slows with age, especially in the hippocampus, the brain compensates by reinforcing existing networks and improving efficiency. Experience becomes a cognitive asset. Older brains often use wider neural networks to solve problems, drawing on context, emotion, and pattern recognition rather than speed alone. This is why seniors may take longer to respond, yet offer deeper, more accurate insight. Memory thrives on meaning. Information connected to purpose, emotion, or personal relevance is encoded more deeply and retrieved more easily at any age. For seniors, this principle becomes even more important. Passive consumption of information, such as background television or scrolling, does little for memory. Active engagement, conversation, teaching, storytelling, and purposeful learning stimulate the brain in ways that strengthen recall. When the brain understands why something matters, it invests energy in preserving it. Movement plays a central role in this process. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients while supporting the growth of new synaptic connections. Even gentle movement improves memory by reducing inflammation and supporting the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein essential for learning and memory. The brain evolved in motion. When the body moves, the brain receives a signal that it must stay alert, adaptive, and responsive. Sleep is another powerful regulator. During deep sleep, the brain consolidates memories, clearing metabolic waste and stabilizing neural circuits. After 70, sleep architecture often changes, with lighter sleep and more awakenings. This does not mean memory consolidation stops, but it becomes more sensitive to disruption. Poor sleep can mimic cognitive decline, while improved sleep often restores clarity. Memory loss blamed on age is frequently rooted in chronic sleep deprivation rather than neural damage. Nutrition quietly shapes memory as well. The brain relies on steady glucose delivery, healthy fats, micronutrients, and hydration. Fluctuating blood sugar impairs attention and recall. Omega-3 fatty acids support neuronal membranes. B vitamins assist neurotransmitter production. Dehydration reduces cognitive performance even before thirst is felt. These influences are gradual and cumulative, shaping memory over months and years rather than days. Social connection acts as cognitive exercise. Conversation requires attention, recall, emotional regulation, and adaptability. Isolation deprives the brain of these stimuli. Seniors who maintain social engagement show slower cognitive decline, not because socializing prevents disease, but because it keeps neural networks active and flexible. Loneliness, on the other hand, increases stress hormones that damage memory-related brain regions over time. Stress itself is a critical factor. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which interferes with hippocampal function and memory formation. Older adults often carry layered stress from health concerns, loss, financial worry, and fear of decline. When memory lapses occur, stress increases further, creating a feedback loop. Learning to interpret forgetfulness calmly rather than catastrophically protects memory by preventing this hormonal cascade. Belief about memory shapes performance. Seniors who believe memory decline is inevitable often disengage, stop challenging their minds, and avoid situations that require recall. This withdrawal weakens cognitive confidence and reduces stimulation. Those who view memory as adaptable remain mentally active and resilient. Expectation becomes biology. The brain responds to how it is treated. Routine and structure provide another form of support. Memory does not operate independently of attention. Consistent routines reduce cognitive load, freeing mental energy for recall and learning. When life becomes chaotic or overstimulating, memory appears weaker. Simplicity strengthens cognition. Familiar rhythms allow the brain to allocate resources efficiently. Learning new skills later in life remains one of the strongest signals to the brain that adaptation is required. Whether it is a language, instrument, craft, or technology, learning challenges existing neural pathways and encourages growth. The goal is not mastery, but engagement. Effort itself is protective. The brain responds to challenge by strengthening itself. Emotional health also shapes memory. Depression dulls attention and recall, often mistaken for dementia. Grief temporarily disrupts memory by overwhelming emotional processing systems. Addressing emotional well-being restores cognitive function in many cases. Memory reflects the whole person, not just the brain. Importantly, memory does not exist only in the mind. It is distributed across habits, environments, and relationships. Notes, Calendars, reminders, and cues are not signs of weakness, but extensions of cognition. The human brain has always relied on external supports. Using them wisely preserves independence and confidence. The goal after 70 is not perfect recall, but functional memory that supports a meaningful life. Remembering names, stories, emotions, and values matters more than recalling every detail. The brain naturally prioritizes what aligns with identity and purpose. This prioritization is not loss, but refinement. When memory is viewed through this lens, aging becomes less about decline and more about adaptation. The brain shifts from speed to depth, from accumulation to integration. It remembers what serves connection, safety, and meaning. Supporting memory after 70 is therefore not a single intervention, but a way of living. It is movement, rest, nourishment, curiosity, calm, and connection working together. It is treating the brain not as a failing machine, but as a responsive organ shaped by care. The truth is that many seniors live with more cognitive capacity than they are led to believe. Fear and misunderstanding obscure resilience. When the brain is supported rather than suspected, memory often stabilizes, adapts, and continues to serve life with quiet reliability.